Chapter 27, verse 1. Yeah, Colby. Okay, I'm sorry we don't have any soup, but God willing, this will be fixed by tomorrow. If I have to make it myself. These boys had my soup this past Shabbos. What did you think, Colby?
It was good.
Just good? Just good?
It was great.
It was great. Moshe, immaculate. It was peak. Like chicken soup. Vayiki Zaken Yitzchak. And the reason why I wasn't here yesterday, because I was at the engagement party of our son, and everybody's welcome to the wedding. It's on the 24th of March, 119 days. Jeff Mendelson was there yesterday. He had a good time. He represented. Vayiki Zaken Yitzchak. So when Isaac grew old, his eyes grew dim. Do you have the page there, Kobe? You're in the wrong book. Use that book. What page are we on? No, he's got it. He's got it. What page is it? Anybody have the page? It's chapter 27 of Genesis, verse 1. So it was when Isaac, the red book, the red Chumash. You have to go over there, Moshe. You have the page, Dan?
Yeah.
Oh, you brought your own. Okay. So you got one for Ezra too. Does Ezra have one? No, he doesn't. He's got the wrong book. Vayiki Zaken Yitzchak, when Isaac grew old, his eyes grew dim. Vayikras Esav Beno Hagadol, and he called Esav his oldest son. Vayomer Lav Beni, and he calls to Esav, and he says, "My son." Vayomer Lav Hineni, and he says, "Here I am." Two things about this I wanted to point out. So Rashi says that why were his eyes dim? What does it mean? Why were Isaac's eyes dim? Rashi gives two explanations. Actually, Rashi gives three explanations. What page are we on? Chapter 27, verse 1. Give me this, Kobe. What page is it?
142.
142. Okay, so there are three explanations. Why are Esav's eyes dim? Why are Esav's eyes dim? So, hold on one second. I just want to pull this up here. Rashi gives three explanations. What are the three explanations? Anybody remember them? Oh, you're reading them? Okay, fine. So, hold on one second. No, it's beautiful. Okay, here we go. So there are three explanations. First explanation is through the smoke of the wives of Esav. Esav's wives were making offerings to idolatry, and their smoke blinded Esav. So that's kind of saying, that kind of means, according to that approach, basically what we're saying, Rashi's arguing that he was blind from Esav's actions. Esav's actions made him blind, or maybe because he was blind, he didn't see what was going on with Esav. His own son disappointed him. A second approach is that it was when he was on the altar of the Akedah, and his father was about to slaughter him. At that moment, the heavens opened up, and the angels saw what was happening, and they cried, and their tears descended, and they fell on his face, and therefore his eyes dimmed. So from the tears of the angel, he became blind. According to this approach, it was the trauma of the Akedah that blinded him. He was unable to see from the trauma of the Akedah. Isn't I? Well, yeah, sure. The tears of the angels came down, but to my mind, that's like saying that he was affected by the trauma of the Akedah. But you're right. It could be I'm reading a midrash on Tarashi's midrash, but I mean the other. No. I mean, what's the power of that message? Oh, wait, David, you're not allowed to come without Lev and Gil. So we're in chapter 27, verse 1. So, I mean, to my mind, what does it mean? I always try to understand, like, what is the message of the idea that the angel's tears fell into his eyes, that something happened at the Akedah that blinded him. Because how can an angel be crying? Or we never hear another idea throughout the Talmud of an angel crying. And then there's the third explanation, which is so that it was all preordained by God so that Jacob should take the blessings, to allow Yaakov to steal the blessings. So therefore, for this reason, he went blind. The other explanation here is that Esav, and Rashi says this, Esav, for all of his terrible actions, he had one merit. He had one merit. What was his one merit for all of Esav's terrible actions? And one thing which he honored his father. He honored his father. And you see that in this verse, that his father calls him and he says, "Here I am." He says, "Here I am." How many of us are able to do that? How many of us are able to respond and say, "Here I am"? How many of us are even able to come to the level of Esav? How many of us are even able to come to the level of Esav? And so you see this, that sometimes people don't have too many redeeming qualities, but at least they have that redeeming quality that they're able to do with that. And that's a very powerful quality. It's a very powerful spiritual strength. And that's creates a very powerful spiritual energy, which we can only counteract by honoring our elders and honoring our parents to the extent that we can. And you think about some of the enemies of the Jewish people through history, they were at least able to do that. So that's one of the things that is pointed out. Okay, this next Rashi I think about a lot. Very haunting, very haunting. He says, "Vayomer hinena zakanti." Says, "Behold, I'm getting old. Lo yadati yomoti." Isaac says, I don't know the day of my death. What does that mean? So it says Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Does anyone know who Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha is? That's Rabbi Yeshua, the son of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was bald, so they called him the son of the bald one. So he says, if the person reaches the age at which his parents died, he should worry that he might die 5 years before and 5 years after. Rabbis understood genetics. Most people die 5 years before and 5 years after their father. Uh-oh. So, what? Don't start thinking too closely. Hell, but that's what. Well, I mean, Dan's in good shape. Dan's father lived to like 200 years old. 94. But of course, Baruch Hashem. But his father was also in the perfect. He did the most physical workouts, and like he followed the British Royal Canadian Royal Air Force exercise routine. But the rabbis understood genetics. Most people die within 5 years and 5 years afterwards. So now at this point, Isaac was 123 years old, but he said, maybe I'm going to reach the age of my mother, and she died at 127. So therefore, and I'm within 5 years. So he thought he was going to die. And so he wasn't sure if he was going to die within 5 years of his mother, 5 years of his father. So in the end, he died within 5 years of his father. But at this point, he thought he might die within 5 years of his mother. So if your parents had at two different ages, you could end up like hopefully the one who lived longer. Nice. Okay. So now he calls to his son. And he says, "Vata sana kelecha, take your weapons, tel yecha v'kashtecha, your sword and your bow, and v'tzei sadeh v'tzudu itzayid, go out to the field and trap me some game." Right? What does it mean? He says, okay, sharpen your knife and take out your sword and go catch me some game from that which is ownerless and not from that which is stolen. So, okay, so the verse tells us, verse 4, Vaseli matamim, make me a delicacy, kasher ahafti, that I love. Va'avioli vochela, bring it to me and I will eat it. Va'avor tivarecha nafshi b'terem amut, so that I can bless you before I die. Make me a delicacy. Okay. Here's an interesting explanation by the Yakar Mipaz. Why is it that Esav made his blessing contingent, dependent upon food? Why did he say, bring me the food and I will bless you? Why did he do that? Why did he make it dependent upon food? Before you answer that question, Jerry has a question. Yes, Jerry.
Since we say that the Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew the 613 mitzvot, why did Jacob send his son out with bow and arrow, which is not correct shchita?
Interesting. That's an interesting. First of all, it's a very, very sensitive point. And you mean, why did Isaac send them out? So I didn't read this Rashi closely enough, but now that you mentioned it, I'll have to read it more closely. Rashi says the word sana, lift up your. I translate as lift up your sword. Rashi translates it as sharpen, meaning to say, you have to sharpen your knife. Rashi says that Isaac said to Esau, sharpen your knife and slaughter it so that you do not feed me an unslaughtered carcass. So Rashi reads it exactly like Jerry's point.
And your bow.
Yeah, but Rashi's saying that he wants him to take it with the sword.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
You'd have to say, what's the bow doing there? What's the bow? How would Rashi explain the bow? Why do you need the bow? The bow would be maybe to protect him from other things. I don't know. Just for show.
for sure.
But I mean, not all due respect to Jeff, that's a little bit, it's forced. I mean, what?
I was being flipped.
Yeah, right. Rashi
Can I
has to,
add?
Rashi has to explain why do we need the bow? Yeah, Rabbi Yosef.
I wanted to add the midrash that says that usually Esav was wearing Nimrod's clothing that would cause all the animals to freeze because of their fear, and that's but at this point it says that that Rebecca had them in her possession, so he had to go back to regular ways, and he didn't know how to do shchita and all that stuff. Like, yes, Isaac for sure wanted to keep kosher, but Esav, on that day, the rabbis tell us he did 5 other things that are definitely not kosher. So, right?
Yeah, but the Rashi doesn't take that approach. Rashi says he told him to do the shchita. He believed his son. He believed his son.
So the bow and arrow was maybe just to scare the animal to a trap or whatever. I don't know. Like
Yeah, it's an interesting question. What's the bow doing there? Okay, but now we'll go back to Shkoyach, Rabbi Yosef. Shkoyach. So now go back to the question. So what was he supposed to, why did he have to give him the food? Now this is a very important Hasidic idea. Why did he have to give him the food? And why is the blessing dependent upon food? So the Yakar Mipaz, maybe Rabbi Yosef could tell us who that is. The Yakar Mipaz, more precious than gold or glitter. He says, Lama Tala Yitzchak et Birchato Esav v'Achilot Matamim. Why did Isaac make the blessing dependent upon food? So he says, because I want you to hear this, Kobe. He wanted to bless Esav. He needed to lower himself to get to the world of the physical. The things that were close to Esav, to words of food. Meaning to say, if you wanted to give an influence on somebody, you have to be like them. You have to walk with them. You have to be like them. Yeah, if you want to have an impact, if you're on the college campus and you want to have an impact on the frat boys who are Jewish, you can't just say come to the base medrash, because for everyone like Kobe that comes, not that Kobe's a frat boy, but for everyone that like Kobe that comes, you're gonna have 500 others who are going to the football game. So I saw there's a rabbi in Miami, a Chabad rabbi. We have all the Chabad rabbis in our prayers, and he's out at the stadium putting on tefillin. He's not waiting for everybody to go to the base medrash. So that's like the idea that he says, I need to relate to Esav. What's he going to do? Open up a Tosfos, the Daf Yomi? Esav's not coming to do the Daf Yomi. He says, we'll have a meal together. So that's going to bring Esav into his orbit. You were trying to say something, Jeff?
Well, I was just going back to what we were talking about before, the word Suda or Suda,
Yeah,
which they translated as capture.
yeah.
So he says, take your sword.
And capture it. Take your bow.
Yeah, I don't know, because maybe his bow was just part of his normal equipment. But take your sword, capture me some food and prepare it. So you could read it. It's not a totally strange reading to read it. Yitzhak said, trap me with food, slaughter it appropriately and bring it.
But the only issue with that is that by Jewish law, if you wound the animal, you can't slaughter it. You can't wound it first.
Yeah, but how are you gonna capture it?
Well, you could trap it.
That's what he says, capture. That's what I meant.
Yeah, but you don't need a bow.
No, the bow, my explanation with the bow is that the bow is just kind of part of his outfit. Like you would normally go out with a bow.
Bow is for protection from other hunters.
Or whatever he needs it for.
Yeah.
Maybe show so other people see him as a
Okay.
young guy.
So Jeff is now supporting Rashi's reading of the text.
No, I'm trying to understand the reading of it.
Okay, fair. Jerry, you had another question?
To pick up on your interesting explanation of food and convincing others, that idea is carried on even currently. Whenever there's an announcement made for a lecture or something, it always says light refreshments will be served.
Yeah, they're not kidding. They're not kidding. Of course, that's the whole idea. Yep, you're right, Jerry. Jerry's been around. He understands. Okay, so now we're up to the next verse, verse 5. So it says, V'Rivka.
It's a student of Rabbi Simcha Bonim of Pshischa.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, beautiful. No, I saw it's Alexander Zusha. He's a student of Reb Zusha. He was a descendant of Reb Zusha, presumably. Alexander Zusha Cohen. So it says, V'Rivka shomas b'daber Yitzchak al Esav b'no. So Rivka heard when Isaac spoke to Esav, her son. And so Esav went out to the field to bring it in. Rashi says, what does it mean to bring? It means to say, if he didn't find the game, he was going to bring it from stolen. He was going to steal it. So what does it mean in Rivka heard? It's a very pregnant phrase. Rivka heard. So now it says, Rivka Amra Yaakov b'no. Rivka said to Jacob, her son, Lemor, Hine shemati et avicha medaber al Esav achicha lemor. Behold, I heard your father speaking to Esav, your brother, saying. I heard your father speaking to Esav, your brother, saying. Oh, so I saw here's something from the Bnei Yissaschar. Who's the Bnei Yissaschar? Bnei Yissaschar is the nephew of Rebbe Melech. You know, the Bnei Yissaschar is the nephew of Rebbe Melech. Yes.
That last little passage mean?
Which one?
The one right before.
About. I need more specifics.
The one you were just saying with the complicated text.
That Rivka said to Jacob, her brother, saying, Behold, I heard your father speaking to Esav, saying, or Rivka heard Isaac speaking to Esav, his son, and Esav went out to the field to catch game. And he said that if he wasn't going to catch it, he was going to steal it. Okay.
It's misinterpretation.
Okay, so why was Rivka so intent Hey, Tzvi, Reb Tzvi. We're now going to say an explanation. What's your middle name, Reb Tzvi? Tzvi Hirsch. Now have an explanation from Reb Tzvi Yisrael. Reb Tzvi Yisrael. So why did Rivka want Yaakov to get the brachos so badly? The brachos were this world. So the Rav Yosef, who was the son of the Av Bezin of the Brisks, he said, according to the law, she understood that Yaakov didn't need this. This is the basic upshot of what he's saying. She knew Yaakov didn't need the blessings of this world, but he might need them to influence Esav. That's what she was saying. He personally didn't need these blessings to achieve his spiritual heights, but you need the blessings in order to accomplish things, in order to influence people in the world. That's the basic point. So why did Yaakov need the blessings of wealth and strength? Because otherwise he wouldn't be able to impact the world. That's the basic point. For his own spiritual value, he didn't need it. But to impact the world, he needed it. That's the idea. That's the idea. So, okay, we'll do one more verse and we'll stop here. So it says in verse 7, she says, Havili tzayed, bring me some game. V'aseli matamim v'ochela. And I remember always growing up, my father always found this passage very difficult. This whole story. How could it be that a husband and wife are not on the same page and deceiving each other about such an important matter? It's not like something insignificant. Of course, we understand, like sometimes a little white lie doesn't hurt a marriage. Like, for example, like, did you make this mess? You say, no, I didn't do it, but I'll clean it up anyway. Obviously, it's not going to hurt anybody. But something like this is obviously
Better insight into this.
But why couldn't they speak to each other? Why were they not on the same page? And that's causing. I'm just saying that this is not the ideal. Jerry.
We have families today where the husband and wife differ politically. The wife might be lefty and the husband might be Trumpy.
That does happen. But that's actually much less disturbing than they're deceiving each other about their children. I mean, it seems to me that this is deeply problematic.
Greater emotional IQ for men, so by definition, they can see more.
Well, the rabbis say that when it comes to matters of the house, the wife is to be trusted. When it comes to education, it's they divide up who you believe on which topics. The rabbis divided up.
I think God had more insight than the rabbis.
Oh, God, yeah. Deborah, we'll give you the last word. Yes.
I was studying this earlier today with another group, and I think
What? There's another group? Okay, go on. Yeah.
Women, all women.
Baruch
Okay.
Hashem.
Didn't Esav want to take back the blessing?
Yeah, he did it. He got very upset.
So it reminded me of what we're talking about in Daf Yomi, that he.
Oh, you're exactly right. He gave the blessing because he thought he was going to die. So there is a whole very, very good, Deborah. So I saw that whole discussion. That's why Yaakov did a kinyan. That the whole lentil soup was not to buy it. It was a kinyan. He did a formal transaction. So therefore, you can't take it back. Also, it was a gift in part. It wasn't all of his possession. It was just the firstborn. He didn't give everything. Very good, Deborah. Sharp as money. All right.
Wow, I got something. Is the Talmud using this whole story?
The Talmud doesn't cite it, but the commentaries do. Shekoyach, Deborah. Shekoyach. We'll daven mincha. We have two mourners here, so they could discuss who gets to leave.